Good morning to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our morning update on the 8 a.m. advisory for what is still extremely dangerous Hurricane Melissa, and it is now approaching just hours away from landfall on the island of Jamaica. And what is about to happen is probably going to be a nightmarish situation for Jamaica, unfortunately, and probably a storm that is going to be talked about for decades to come. And all you need to know, to know that that's going to happen is just take a look at the satellite imagery happening this morning out of Melissa. And it never fails to look incredible. We have a perfectly round CDO. It has a perfectly round, well-rounded eye as well. And it is all barreling straight for the island of Jamaica. It's probably just hours away from landfall at this point. And it is still maintaining intensity from last night, the latest National Hurricane Center advisory. And let's actually go to it right now. Maximum sustained winds are at 175 miles per hour still. The minimum pressure is at 901 millibars, so we are not seeing weakening at this time. So this is likely on its way to making landfall at or near peak intensity on the island of Jamaica, and it certainly looks that way, especially on satellite, as its appearance is not at all deteriorated at all. In fact, in many ways, you can argue that it's kind of improved a little bit in recent frames. And let me bring you to the long wave IR to show you that. Still has its perfectly well-rounded CDO. And just look at how circular that eye is. In fact, it's so incredible that Melissa is continuously breaking the record for the warmest eye temperature on satellite ever recorded, and that sounds absolutely insane, but that is what is going on with Melissa right now. And very interestingly enough, it's almost as if you could see on the most recent frames that it kind of gets smoothed out a little bit even more. So bottom line, what I'm trying to say with that is that I don't think there's going to be any major weakening that'll happen with this storm till landfall. And as you can see here on the track from Melissa, and I had to shorten it to the 3-day track because I wanted to show you how the wind field is looking for Jamaica right now, and the entire island is now fully submerged in tropical storm force winds. So the entire island is already likely experiencing moderate, maybe even high-end tropical storm force winds. And as you can see, the hurricane force wind field is very, very small, luckily, but it is not long from making its way onshore. And within that very, very small hurricane force wind field, there's likely going to be those very, very powerful 175 mile per hour winds. And that is something that I should point out, is that a lot of people are thinking, and a lot of people tend to think that, when we're talking about 175 miles per hour in a hurricane, that you're going to probably find it throughout the entirety of the span of the hurricane that you see here on satellite. But that's actually not the case. In reality, the 175 mile per hour winds that are currently inside Melissa are more than likely only within the very, very small band here in the eye wall, which is literally just surrounding the eye, and it's only for about like a minute or so as Melissa moves through that you're going to actually experience those 175 mile per hour winds before you end up getting into the eye. But still, those winds are going to be powerful and very, very devastating. But I should also mention there's going to be a lot of rainfall as well for the island, as much as 20 to 30 inches of rainfall still expected for pretty much a large portion of the island, and then for the entirety of the island beyond that, as much as 8 to 12 inches, so up to a foot expected still for at least all of the island here. Again, some areas going to get up to 20 to 30 inches, so that's roughly still 2 feet of rain that is to still be expected, because already the island in many places have already gotten as much as probably in some cases already a foot or two of rain, if not even more. And then we're also going to have a huge rainfall situation for Cuba, as well as after the landfall here in Jamaica, we're going to get a landfall in Cuba as well. And there as well, we could see areas that could see as much as 20 to 30 inches of rain, and of course a larger swath of seeing potentially up to 16 to 20 inches of rain, and then of course a pretty significant chunk in general of southeastern Cuba expecting up to a foot of rain. And I do want to stress the rainfall potential, because obviously that's going to lead to a series of completely separate issues, on top of the fact that we're going to be dealing with 175-mile-per-hour winds here. But I do want to point out that the wind is obviously now especially going to be a huge issue, and the National Hurricane Center sums it up pretty well in the key messages here for Melissa, with a very, very ominous text. And I went over a similarly ominous text last night in my late night update, but here it is for you. Tropical storm winds are occurring in Jamaica. So pretty much, if you are not yet indoors, I really don't know what you're doing. You should already be indoors and bracing for the worst. As tropical storm winds are occurring in Jamaica. Catastrophic hurricane force winds are expected to begin during the next few hours. And within the eye wall, where we have those 175-mile-per-hour winds, total structure failure is likely, especially in higher elevation areas where the wind speeds atop and on the winds and the windward sides of the hills and mountains could be up to 30% stronger. So meaning that the 175-mile-per-hour winds of the eye wall more than likely will actually be upwards of 200 miles per hour in higher elevations. And we kind of saw a similar situation occur with Helene, where the winds were stronger, especially in the higher elevations, for instance, in places like the mountainous, areas of eastern North Carolina, which also really fueled on to a lot of the damage that we saw in eastern North Carolina, or western North Carolina, I should say, because of Helene. And that situation is going to happen here as well. And I should also point out as well, storm surge is going to be a huge issue. Now, I did, go over, I think a few days ago, exactly where the landfall is going to be, and it's going to be on the western half of the island. And from what I'm aware, it doesn't seem like it's very populated right along the coast, which is a good thing. It's not like this is making landfall near the Kingston area in Jamaica. So, we're not going to be dealing with a 175-mile-per-hour landfall straight into a very populated area of the island, which is obviously good, but this is definitely going to still impact a lot of people regardless. And as this makes landfall along the coast, storm surge heights could reach 9 to 13 feet above ground level, and near into the east of where the center of Melissa will make landfall. Again, right in the right front quadrant of the storm, which is usually where the strongest quadrant of the storm typically tends to be. And then we will have also large waves as well. And on the northwest coast of Jamaica, near Montego Bay, the possibility of 2 to 4 feet of storm surge is there as well. And there will also be high storm surge as well for Cuba, although I'm going to go over the impacts of Cuba a little bit later on, as we're still got to deal with the impact here from Jamaica. But Cuba too is going to deal with high storm surge as well, because more than likely this will still be a major hurricane as this is heading for Cuba as this passes over Jamaica today, and they could see levels up to 7 to 11 feet. But again, we'll go over that in more detail later on, after we deal with the situation here that is about to unfold in Jamaica. And finally, just to wrap up, I do want to tell you recon is in the storm, so we're going to get more information on how Melissa is doing. But I could already tell you by the satellite, things are going to be very, very bad, and we're just hours away from landfall. Here, we're hours away from likely um, generational change that's going to happen to the island. It's probably going to take at least a generation for certain areas to recover from the magnitude of what is about to happen here. So I'm praying for everybody, hoping everybody is safe and did as much as possible to prepare for the storm. We'll continue to keep you updated throughout the day today. Now, judging by how things are going, I'm not necessarily sure I'm going to be able to make it in time to be able to do a landfall stream for Melissa as this is making landfall, unfortunately. But I will, try my best to give you updates on the storm as it is happening, and I'm going to be able to do that again through Twitter. Also going to try to do on YouTube another discussion, probably as this is already making landfall, later this morning. But I'm definitely going to continue to have updates on the storm throughout the day. So make sure to stay tuned for that as it happens. But that's going to wrap it up for this update. I'll be back with more later on. Stay tuned.